Welcome back to the Interpreting Turnitin Originality Reports tutorial. In this brief video, we will go over paraphrasing plagiarism examples in your Turnitin Originality Reports. So let's get started. Before we get started with looking at some examples of paraphrasing plagiarism, let's look at the definition of paraphrasing plagiarism. Remember, we have already mentioned it in our introductory video, but as a reminder, paraphrasing plagiarism is committed when a student summarizes an idea that's taken from an outside source. In other words, the student changes the wording but fails to cite the author or provide in-text citations, and fails to provide corresponding reference which gives credit to the author or authors. So when we look at the examples, it will be a little bit different compared to what we've looked at before, the previous examples in the previous videos, because paraphrasing plagiarism will not be highlighted in your originality reports. And if you look at the definition again, hopefully it will make sense why those areas will not be highlighted. Now, remember that paraphrasing plagiarism consists of areas that are paraphrased or put in students' own words. And if the paraphrase is so well written that differs significantly from the original source, then it makes sense that Turnitin is not going to match it to anything in its database. Therefore, it's very important that you look through the entire report and not only concentrate on the highlighted areas. Now, paraphrasing plagiarism often happens when students forget to cite at the end. They get so wrapped up in trying to get their thoughts on the paper, or I shouldn't say on the paper, in their electronic document, that oftentimes they forget to provide a citation at the end. Now, this is a big problem because even though it's unintentional, it is nevertheless plagiarism. So let's look at some examples and see how you can avoid it and how you can fix paraphrasing plagiarism. Our first example here shows a paragraph that is not highlighted at all. So you may look at this and think, well, nothing's highlighted. And you may assume that this paragraph is plagiarism free. However, it is important to note that there are no citations for these two sentences, which means that the student is presenting this material as her or his own knowledge. So as I read these two sentences, I see that there's some very specific information here regarding the estimated spending of capping the nuclear reactor. Right here, it will cost nearly $1 million. And even though the Commission spent nearly $400 million, right, to cap the reactor, so far they do not see the importance of tracking the devastation of affected human beings. So the student is giving some very detailed information. It's highly unlikely that he or she knew this information, so it had to come from an outside source. Therefore, this will be evaluated for potential plagiarism even though it did not get highlighted. So again, you may ask why, or how come this sentence did not get highlighted. Remember, the student paraphrased the sentence so well that it did not get matched to the database, or this particular source maybe was not in the database. Either way, this is the student would be questioned regarding this information. Where did they get this information from? Therefore, this is an example of paraphrasing plagiarism, as the student paraphrased or summarized the statement or two taken from another author, and the student changed the wording but did not cite the author to give them credit. This is the only way to detect paraphrasing plagiarism. Remember, paraphrasing plagiarism is corrected by citing the source and giving credit to the author. So all you have to do here is provide in-text citations and give credit to the author. Additionally, obviously, just like for any other in-text citation, you have to have a matching reference on your reference page. Here we see another example of a research paper, or paragraph from a research paper, and we see that the entire paragraph is without any highlighted areas. So again, you may think that this paragraph is plagiarism free and does not need any revisions. However, again, it is important to note that there are no citations for this paragraph. This means that the student is presenting this material as his own knowledge again, and just like in the previous example, there is some very specific information here, and this time it's regarding the symptoms that the individuals are having: anemia, hair loss, bleeding, diarrhea, and loss of white blood cells. So some specific examples or specific symptoms. Additionally, there is some very specific information regarding the timing of the appearance of these symptoms. Again, highly detailed, highly unlikely that the student knew this information. So this paragraph would be evaluated for potential plagiarism even though it did not get highlighted. Again, the most likely reason for not highlighting this paragraph is that it was paraphrased so well that it did not get matched to the database, or the source itself was not in the database. But when the instructor reads something like this that's highly detailed, they can question the student and say, well, where did this information come from? Because it's very unlikely that they knew this information. Because, again, if they're writing a research paper, they're just learning about the subject. Therefore, all of this will be new to them. In research papers, most of the materials will need to be cited. This brings us to the end of our tutorial. The tutorial consisted of a series of videos, and I hope that you have enjoyed watching them. Feel free to review them as necessary and to watch them as many times as you need. If you have any questions regarding any of those videos, please visit our Contact Us page, which provides the contact information for the instructor. I hope that you have enjoyed this video and that you have learned how to correctly interpret Turnitin reports so that you could avoid plagiarism and be more successful in maintaining your academic integrity.